All right, so I wanted to quickly do this video where I'm reacting to the Better Call Saul versus Breaking Bad video by Penguinz0, or most known as Moist Critical. I love his content, but I also love Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, so figured let's just combine it. I'll make a video all about it. My audio quality kind of sucks today, but just deal with it. We're going to jump right in.
I finally caught up on Better Call Saul, and what a ride it's been. I feel like I've been rebaptized. I've binged all 6 seasons up till the mid-season finale over the course of about 2 months, and have loved every second of it. Now, I've said this before, but maybe you don't know. Breaking Bad is one of only 3 things I would ever give a 100% to on the Moist meter.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Breaking Bad is fantastic, and I really do think it's a perfect show. I've said in my last video that I think Better Call Saul is a little bit better than it, but that's just my personal preference. So, yeah, I mean, at the level that both of these shows are at, they're both perfect shows.
I think the show is a nearly flawless masterpiece, and the day that I finished watching Breaking Bad was one of the best days of my life, up there with the day I was born. I just cherish that show. And I'll openly admit, I was a naive fucking fool who wasn't sold on the concept of a Saul Goodman spinoff when it was announced.
I felt the exact same way. Actually, it's funny. My dad started watching Better Call Saul long before I did. And I told him I was never interested because the reasoning for me was Saul himself was not one of my favorite characters in Breaking Bad. I liked him. He was good comedy relief. But the idea of a Saul Goodman spin off show, I just couldn't get behind. And then I saw the first couple episodes and I just didn't really like it. Chuck with the electromagnetism thing, nothing about it stuck with me the first time. And then when I went back a couple years later, because it did take me years before I came back, when I finally did end up going back to it, I was hooked.
So I never watched season 1, and then season 2 rolled around, and I felt like I was already too far behind to
That's how
catch
I
up.
felt
So I
too.
never bothered. And it wasn't until a couple months ago where I just got that itch, like a professional athlete who just has that drive to compete at the highest level of their sport. That was me, and my sport was watching TV shows. So over the course of a couple months, I binged all of Better Call Saul, and I gotta say, I was missing out. This show is right up there with Breaking Bad,
That's exactly how I feel.
and it takes place in the same universe, so naturally people would compare them. And I just wanted to make a video giving you my thoughts. Since I think so highly of Breaking Bad, I want to get everything out there with how I feel about Better Call Saul. And I want to make it clear right away, I fucking love this show. Better Call Saul has blown me away. It has just become like a second mother to me, and she's popped the titty out and I'm suckling. She's supplying me with all the nutrients I've ever needed. It's just another masterpiece. I'll of course be moist metering this show once it comes back from its mid-season hiatus. It went out to the store to get some cigarettes, and when it gets home, I'll moist meter it then when it's complete. And I don't really want to be comparing it to Breaking Bad in the moist meter when I'm reviewing it, so I'm just going to do all of that here in this video. Of course, there's no objectively right answer here, and they're two very different shows that go in very different directions and tones.
That's exactly how I feel. I don't think there's a right answer to the question whether which is better, but it really comes down to preference. Like, I'm going to sit here all day long and say I think Better Call Saul is the better show, but that doesn't mean I'm right. If you like Breaking Bad more, that's fine. It really comes down to preference. It's like if two chefs, or no, it's like if one chef made two of the best dishes on the planet. One's chicken parm and the other's a sushi dish, but they're both so perfect. At that point, it just comes down to preference. They're both chef's kisses, you know what I mean? That's how I feel about these two shows. So there really is no right answer.
And I don't think there's one that's like actually better than the other. I think they just exist beautifully together as
That's exactly, I completely agree.
a complete package for the universe. But I still thought it would be fun, since everyone else compares it, to give you my thoughts and tell you where I lean on which one I enjoyed more. Before I get to that, I just want to show you my immediate reaction to the mid-season finale, because I talked about it a bit on stream. I am, however, caught up on Better Call Saul. Bro, that mid-season finale is amazing. And it's downright
Oh, yeah.
criminal that we have to wait like 6 weeks for it to conclude.
Oh my God. When this happened, I was freaking out at the TV, like beyond belief. I was in my room. I was watching this on my computer, on one of my monitors, just sitting there screaming at the TV. And then I still live at home because I'm young enough, thank the Lord. Anyway, my mom's like, "What are you screaming about?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, they killed Howard." I was freaking out. I'm privy to spoilers. Usually when I see a show like The Walking Dead or something, I kind of already know of things because I'm nosy. But this show, I had no idea. This was my like first time ever seeing a death live because even Hank, I found out about Hank's death in Breaking Bad before I saw it. But this was so shocking. And even though Lalo came in and you like knew it was gonna happen, it was so freaking shocking. I was screaming.
I'm tight. Like, I'm actually mad about that. I was watching that in bed the other night, and the second it ended, I just sat there for like, I'd say probably about 2 minutes just digesting it.
Dude, same.
That actually
Same.
shut my body down with a hype overload. It like overloaded my chakra. I was blown away by it. I think the mid-season finale is the best episode of the series. It was just a straight up mic drop and then it slapped me in the face. It is outstanding. And it's up there with Breaking Bad's best episodes as well. It's the culmination of 6 seasons worth of character building and development with relationships as well as how they get to this point and a giant scheme that they've been planning for quite some time now, all coming to fruition, all bubbling over into an absolutely shocking conclusion, and I just cannot wait to see how it all ends. So I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'd like to get into how I feel about it versus Breaking Bad. I'm just going to hit you with the cold water right away and just drop my pants and let you see me for who I am. I think Breaking Bad is still the better overall show.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, just like what I said, it doesn't matter which your preference is. They're both great shows, but I'm interested to hear why.
But I don't think there's a right answer on this SAT question here in which one is a better show. It comes down to personal preference. For me, Breaking Bad squeaks itself away in a photo finish to take the dubski thanks to the size, the scope, and the stakes of the series.
I agree with the fact that the principal story of Breaking Bad is better than Better Call Saul. The story about a teacher who turns into a meth distributor and like drug kingpin. It's a fantastic story, and the foundation is so solid. And yeah, on that level, I think it totally does beat Better Call Saul.
Across all of Breaking Bad, you're constantly dealing with life and death stakes. You know, how is Walt going to handle this new problem? Is this person going to die? You never know who's going to die, and the tremendous impact that has on the world as a whole, not just the characters, but it has a giant ripple effect that echoes throughout the entire show, and you get to see that throughout Breaking Bad. Whereas in Better Call Saul, I think it has better writing. I actually think they've improved the writing a lot for Better Call Saul,
Yep.
but it's much more focused on the characters. It's a much bigger character-driven piece with the relationship between Saul Goodman, Kim, Howard, Chuck. You're seeing them interact with each other, grow with each other, and all of the tension, all of the conflict, and all of the ramifications of things all affect the characters specifically, and it stays with just the characters being affected.
That's why I personally stand by Better Call Saul more. Because, well, one of two things with that. One, the show came out already matured, right? Obviously, Better Call Saul wouldn't exist without Breaking Bad. But because of that, the writers, Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould, Tom Schnoz, all of them, they were all able to sit down and be like, this is the story. Whereas I feel with Breaking Bad, it took obviously the pilot and then that whole first season and a little bit of season 2 before the show found its groove. The story was there from episode 1. The story about the teacher turned meth dealer, that story was solid from the very first episode. But for them to find their nice, comfortable space where they were writing good, where they had their characters down to a science, I feel like it took a lot of time. That's why I think Better Call Saul is better, because it's a very character-based show. They already developed some of these characters, and the new ones, well, if they already had the story planned, at least for a little bit, they kind of had some idea of where they wanted to go, and the writers are just more mature at this point. So I think from that perspective, that's why I personally prefer it. I like the characters of Better Call Saul more. Obviously, don't get me wrong, I love Jesse, I love Walt, I love Hank, yada yada yada, but I really feel like the characters are just straight up stronger in Better Call Saul.
It doesn't have these far reaching, unforeseen consequences out in the world, at least not right away. I will say, over the course of the last couple of seasons, the tone has been shifting ever so slightly to be more in the direction of Breaking Bad, where the stakes are getting raised. They introduced a new villain, Lalo, and I think Lalo Salamanca is the best villain in the Breaking Bad universe. And I don't say
Totally agree. I loved Gus, but I think Lalo is better than Gus. He just has way more charisma, yada yada yada, all that stuff. He's such a great character.
that lightly, but Lalo is a cold, calculating fiend, and every time he is on screen, he steals the scene. An absolutely amazing villain. He's like the fucking boogeyman. Just have you wetting your pants at the mere mention of his name. And you see that in the show, and it's great. You know, anyone that meets Lalo gets shaken. He has just this absolutely mind-crushing effect on people's psyche because he is just that feared. It's such a good character, such a good villain. But like I said, the show's very different from Breaking Bad in that instead of the tension coming from how Walt is going to handle a problem or what's going to happen to Walt as a result of a mistake, is someone going to die here? Who's going to die here? How are they getting out of this situation? Are they going to shoot their way out? What have you? Instead of like nuts to butts, action, death, and adventure, in Better Call Saul, the tension comes from, well, Saul's doing some sketchy shit. How is Kim going to react? He's still trying to get his approval from his brother, Chuck. How's he going to react to what Saul's just done? Is he going to go to jail? Is he going to be disbarred? So the tension and everything is still very much there, and it's very well done because the show does an incredible job of making you care about the characters. But like I said, as a personal preference, I preferred the life and death stakes. It made everything feel much more grand in scope.
That's how I feel about the show, in that, like I said in the beginning, I didn't really care for Saul Goodman as a character in Breaking Bad. I liked him, but the writers in Better Call Saul, well, they're the same, but the writers made me truly care about Jimmy McGill and even Saul Goodman, even though I don't like Saul Goodman. The writers made me truly care about Jimmy McGill. And I couldn't believe that because I didn't care for him in the previous show. So to see that change was so awesome. Like chef's kiss, moi moi. Amazing job on the writers.
But I still do love Better Call Saul. And like I said, it's not always like that. As the seasons develop, it is getting more life or death stakes. Things are having a lot wider consequences and a lot more serious consequences as more things get introduced. But on the whole, I think Breaking Bad just did a better job of giving me the sense of wonder, mystique, and holy shit, this is big time. This is huge. This is going to affect the whole goddamn planet, what Walt's doing in the laboratory. Whereas in Better Call Saul, it is much more localized to the characters that we are seeing consistently. We are watching a character-driven piece. It's just very different in its tone from Breaking Bad. And I still love it. Like I said, I think Better Call Saul has better writing. I also think it's shot better than Breaking Bad, which of course makes sense since it's the same team. They're obviously going to be getting better at this. But I also think Saul Goodman's fall from grace and temptation to the dark side of the Force is better executed than it was for Walt in Breaking Bad.
Totally agree.
It's meticulously crafted with Saul Goodman where he's just constantly tiptoeing over the line into a very shady area and very more and more morally indefensible. Whereas in Breaking Bad, it's kind of like a switch that flips to a certain extent, where Walt immediately just starts becoming a really bad guy and getting worse and worse and worse. Saul Goodman starts as someone that you can't help but root for a little bit. It's a guy who's, wasn't a good person in the past and has done their absolute best to get their approval of their brother and make something of themselves. And it's a pretty wholesome story that I think a lot of people can relate to with the Saul Goodman backstory as Jimmy McGill. And as you continue the journey, you keep seeing him go a little further and a little further and a little further until now he's at a point where he's doing some fucked up shit. And
so I think the whole plot of Better Call Saul is all about Bad Choice Road. They talked about this in season 5. I forget the episode, but it's after Bagman. I think it might be the last episode or the second to last. And after Mike says what he says about we all make our decisions and those decisions put us on a road, I've looked at the entire series that way, and I feel like that's truly what the show is all about. Obviously, it's about Slip and Jimmy growing, yada yada yada, but really all the characters in the main story go down Bad Choice Road, and it is a descent into madness for them essentially, and that's what I think makes the show so special. Whereas you have the same sort of thing in Breaking Bad, it's Bad Choice Road, but I just like the way it's executed here personally more.
And I think the way that we got here in Better Call Saul was executed better than it was in Breaking Bad. It really did a great job of slowly showing you Saul succumb to temptation and end up where he currently is. And he never comes across as the villain. He never comes across as some heartless, cartoon, mustache twirling bad guy, just evil for the sake of being evil. And he never comes across like Walt either. Walt is someone that you clearly can't root for by the end of the show.
Okay, I'm going to interject here because this came out on June 6th and it is now August 13th. So obviously we've seen a lot more episodes. But I think now that we've seen Gene Takovic and what he's doing, I can't root for Saul anymore. Or Gene, or whatever you want to call him. I can't root for him anymore. I actually feel the exact same way that I did about Walt. I feel that way about Jimmy McGill now. Even though I love Jimmy McGill, I hate Gene. I didn't like Saul. And I just think at this point in time, he just needs to rot in jail. That's how I feel about it. I really hope we get to see that. The last episode is coming out in a couple days. Can't wait to see. But I think he deserves jail.
However, Saul Goodman, he never has his I am the danger, I am the one who knocks moment like Walt does. Even when he's doing the most morally fucked shit or defending someone from the cartel or doing something for the cartel, there's always almost a way of justifying it to see how Saul could have gotten here. And since we've grown so much with the character and seen him from the bottom till now, there's always a way of looking back on his past and being like, yeah, I kind of get how we got here. You know, I can sympathize with him, which I really appreciate. They spent so much time crafting these characters to perfection. So I actually think Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad in quite a few areas. But there are certain things about Better Call Saul that I think Breaking Bad just does better. For example, I think Jesse is a better secondary character than Kim. I think Kim is great in Better Call Saul, don't get me wrong, I think she is a fantastic character. And again, these aren't even characters that can really be compared, it's apples to oranges, they're just completely different. But since this whole video I just want to compare the shows together, I figured I might as well talk about the most important character behind the lead, and in this case, it's Kim. Breaking Bad's case, it was Jesse. So Kim's main conflict comes from profession versus own sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, rather. Kim is the most talented lawyer in the show, and everyone in the show appreciates that and wants to work with her. And she works many places, the best firms there are. HHM, Schweikart even has her own private practice, and she has big clients and always has slam dunks, just absolutely goes fucking hog wild on the law and makes magic happen. So she has a client like Mesa Verde, big bank. She's making money off them, putting food on the table, and she's raking in the fat stacks, supposedly. But she never feels that sense of satisfaction. There's a hole in her soul where she feels like she's not using her talent to actually help people individually. So as the show progresses, it's her battling that, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I love about it so much is a lot of it is spent with Kim also going down Bad Choice Road.
You know, juggling profession versus morals. She wants to help people, but she knows she also needs to make money. She starts her own practice at some point, and then she takes a lot of pro bono cases, which then leads to her fumbling Mesa Verde a bit. And everything that she goes through usually revolves around the law and her use of it, whether it's to help rich people, which also makes her rich, or to help people that she thinks needs a fighting chance in court, where without her they wouldn't have it. And I think it's great, and I think it's handled really well. Like I said, I think Kim is a fantastic character. And I love the way they're handling her tiptoeing into the pool of temptation. She's been going through subtle changes over the course of quite a few episodes now. And it didn't start that way. She used to be, by the book. No horseplay, no silly stuff, nothing fishy, all above book.
Yeah, I love how they changed her character to be more, going into that dark side. I think it really is cool the way they set it up for her.
But as her and Saul Goodman get closer and closer, Saul Goodman begins to rub off on her. Now she's starting to come up with her own schemes and scams and bending the rules. And it's just been a really interesting transformation to watch that I think has been handled masterfully. But
couldn't agree more.
Then in Breaking Bad, there's Jesse. And holy shit, he's gotta be the saddest character in television history. Nothing good ever happens to him that lasts longer than 30 minutes. I swear to God, someone must have gathered all 8 Dragon Balls and made a wish just to curse Jesse for life. His story, his character arc is just a depressing train wreck that you can't look away from. Yeah. Throughout the course of Breaking Bad, you see so much awful shit happen to Jesse. He loses everything, loses everyone, tortured. You name it, Jesse has gone through it.
Yeah, it's really tragic, everything that's happened to Jesse. And not only that, obviously, like I said, this was recorded before it came out, but there was that recent scene with Jesse and Kim, and I loved that shot because it was 2 characters who, their circumstantial events caused them to have a lot of pain in their lives. Obviously, Jesse's was way worse, but it's pretty interesting of a parallel.
And yet, there's still hope in Jesse by the end of the show. There's just something to be said about a story like that goes that hard and gets that dark for a character like Jesse. It's something I've never seen attempted before Breaking Bad, nor after. Or at least it's never been done nearly as well as it was in Breaking Bad. I really think Jesse is one of the most interesting characters to ever hit the screen, movie, TV show, any of it. I really think there's so much depth to that character. And now I want to make it clear, Jesse's not a saint, right? Jesse's not some angel. He's done fucked up shit too. But you always have to wonder, does he deserve everything that happens to him in that show?
Absolutely not. No way in hell. He was actually a good character, other than killing Gale and a couple other things he did. I mean, those are not justifiable, but he didn't deserve to be tortured the way he did. No way.
It's just so well done. So again, you can't really compare Kim to Jesse, but I'm doing it just for the sake of talking about how I feel overall about Better Call Saul versus Breaking Bad, since that's the whole subject of the video. I do, however, think that the new character introduced in Better Call Saul, Nacho, is actually kind of comparable to Jesse. They go on similar journeys in different ways. Both of them start by making some bad choices.
Yeah, Nacho and Jesse are pretty much the same character, just changed up for the story. And if you think about it realistically, Nacho had... Obviously, he wasn't tortured, but he had the same bad things happen to him because he was tied up with the wrong people. The difference is he obviously had no way out. Jesse did, thank the Lord, but yeah.
And as a result of these bad decisions, they suffer for the entire duration of the show.
Yep.
Nacho, I'm avoiding spoilers as much as I can and being as vague as I can. Nacho, throughout the course of the series, is being used, abused, shot, beat up, all for the sake of the people that are doing this to them, furthering their own goals by using him to achieve it. He goes undercover for people. He does dirty work for people. And every step of the way, he does exactly what's asked of him to perfection and still just gets blasted for it every time. And while Nacho's not a good person, he has a good heart. He cares about his father and will do anything to protect his dad and get him out of harm's way, no matter what the cost. And I just think Nacho is a great character. I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison with Jesse by any means, but Nacho does go through similar circumstances, and it's just a really compelling story arc with that character. Yeah. But yeah, obviously I recognize these are just two very different shows, but since they're in the same universe and since everyone compares them, I wanted to get my feelings out about them. If there wasn't Breaking Bad to compare this show to, I would consider Better Call Saul my nearly flawless masterpiece.
So I hate cutting it off mid-sentence there, but someone brought this up to my attention on a TikTok post I made saying that if Breaking Bad was made after Better Call Saul was made, Breaking Bad would be even like way better than it already is. And it's already a fantastic show, but the reasoning is because the writers are so much more matured. And if you take the cinematography that was made in Better Call Saul and you apply that to Breaking Bad and apply the editing and all the character development that Better Call Saul has down to a pat, oh my God, Breaking Bad would be better. The first 2 seasons of Breaking Bad were slow. They weren't the best. The story was there, like I said, but like if they had all those tropes down, the writing, the cinematography, the editing, the way it was in Better Call Saul, oh my God, Breaking Bad would be even more of a perfect show.
Same way I view Breaking Bad, I would view Better Call Saul that way. But since Breaking Bad is there, I still give the edge to Breaking Bad just because, for my personal taste, I just appreciate the stakes being that much higher. And it's just a slight edge I give Breaking Bad over Better Call Saul. I think Better Call Saul is better in quite a few areas. And I actually do want to say this. I think Saul Goodman is a deeper character than Walt. You never really can put a finger on how Saul gets to the point that he's at. Is it greed that drives him, or is it something deeper? Is it the people around him that pushed him over the edge finally? Everyone always looked down on Saul and expected nothing from him. His own brother always just referred to him as Slippin' Jimmy and never saw him as anyone that could do anything good. He believed he had a good heart, but at the end of the day would always lead to down the most like destructive bad path imaginable.
So yeah, I feel like if Chuck didn't treat Jimmy the way that he did, none of the events would have happened in Breaking Bad. Obviously, you can't, because it's a show that was made, that would never be the case, but realistically speaking, from a character standpoint, if Chuck had more faith in his brother, Jimmy would have been a way better lawyer, and everything that happened would not have happened.
So is there something in the way that people treated him that perhaps made him feel spiteful? You know, that he had something to prove? And you just never get a concrete answer for what really gets Saul Goodman to the point where he goes over the line. Whereas in Breaking Bad, it's no secret, it's not like the goddamn, Coca-Cola formula. Everyone knows what drives Walt to do the things he does and get to the point that he ends up at. It's the power. Walt loves being Heisenberg. He says as much. He makes it very clear how much the power means to him. Mm-hmm. His previous life was shitty. He was just an unassuming teacher with perhaps a bit of a problem with his self-esteem. But as Heisenberg, he's the fucking man. And that means more to him than anything. People get hurt around him, and yes, he'll feel bad about it, but the power makes him feel better. It's very clear what drives Walt in Breaking Bad. In Better Call Saul, it's a little muddier. You're not ever really sure how Saul truly feels about the things that are happening around him.
Well, that's because Saul or Jimmy or whatever, he was that way for his whole life. It goes back to Chuck. Chuck calls him Slippin' Jimmy because he knows him. That's how he always was. He's desensitized to it. So Walt was never that way. He was a pushover. And when he finally got that feeling, it drowned him.
And the decisions he makes. So I just think he's just a bit more of like a deeper character, which makes sense since Better Call Saul is much more of a character-focused piece as opposed to Breaking Bad. I think both shows are absolutely amazing. But again, like I said, I do very, very slightly give the edge to Breaking Bad for my personal taste. Yeah. But I think both are truly masterpieces. And if you haven't seen either one, I highly recommend them. And I just wanted to talk about this and compare them in a whole video here since I won't be doing it in the Moist Meter. And yeah, that's about it.
So yeah, I'm interested to get your thoughts in all of that because he brought up some really interesting points, and obviously he prefers Breaking Bad over Better Call Saul, whereas I prefer Better Call Saul over Breaking Bad. Really interested to get your thoughts in the comments, and with that, I'm out. Peace.